Welcome back to MVM. Today we have a Kickstarter preview. This one is for Rise of the Elder Gods. It's from Inside Up Games, a 2 to 6 player game in which you are representing one of the Elder Gods using your followers to corrupt the town.
Yeah, you're going to be doing this in a very simple way, but this game has a lot of sort of jockeying for position at these 3 different locations. You're trying to deplete these 3 different pools on the board, collect as many points along the way, and generally do Elder God stuff.
So as we say with all Kickstarters, this is a prototype that you're seeing. Make sure you guys go to the Kickstarter page to see all the final components. So what you're looking at here is the main board. The main board is broken into 3 different columns. Each of these columns is going to be represented by one of the 3 different buildings in the town. You're going to have a number of things that are below it or underground. You have a resolve deck, you have a soul pile, and then you have a power pile. The number of cards in each of these is dependent upon the number of players. So if you have a 2 to 3 player game, it's going to be 15 cards. If you have a 4 through 6, it's going to be 20 cards. And each of these different stacks is going to work in the exact same way.
Yeah, let's talk about each of these 3 pools at each location in a little bit more detail. I'm going to start from the bottom and go up. At the bottom, you're going to have the power tokens. The power tokens are going to be used to sort of juice up your resolve actions. You have a resolve deck that you're going to be flipping. The power tokens allow you to add some corruption to those, and that's going to be done in a number of different instances throughout the game.
Right above that, you have the soul tokens. These soul tokens range in victory points from 0 to 2. They're all randomized at the start of the game and placed face down. It's one of the 5 different ways that you're possibly going to be scoring victory points through the course of the game by collecting these.
Yeah, and right above that are the resolve cards. Everyone starts with some resolve cards right at the beginning. You're going to have 4 horror cards and 1 determined card. These in this deck will also include the focused card. You'll always know that you're either going to get a focused or a determined card from the resolve stack at each location. You're going to want to do that because you want to increase the power of this deck. You're going to be using this deck, like I mentioned earlier, flipping cards from it, hopefully getting either focused or determined, and using that along with the power tokens in order to break ties or win situations against some of the investigators.
Keeping within the columns, we'll talk about this column here. You're also going to notice above each one of the columns and below each one of the columns, you have a space for a card. Above them, you're going to have the investigators. When you look at an investigator, these are the bad people. Good people in real life, bad for you. They all have a number of victory points that you'll get at the end of the game if you're able to corrupt these investigators. They also are going to have an icon down here, we'll explain that in a moment, and like a kill value or a corrupt value that you have to overcome. These are randomly placed at the top of each one of these rows, and below them you're going to notice a specific icon to that row, because on the back sides of each of these cards, they're going to have an icon, which is going to trigger which one of these investigators is going to basically attack at the end of each round. Below each one of these areas, you have blessings.
Yeah, the blessing card, there's 1 at the bottom of each location. There's only going to be 3 in any one game. These are effectively goals that you can accomplish throughout the game. And in fact, when any one player accomplishes one of these, they may take this card and claim the points on it. You don't have to, because some of these cards are going to vary in points, and you might want to wait and take a different one, because you can only take 1 blessing throughout the game. Once you have one, you can't take another. That's the same with the altar cards.
When you look at the altar cards around the outside edges on the left and right hand side, you're going to have an X number of altar cards depending upon the number of players. We have a 3-player game, so we have 2 of these. Again, this works very similar to the blessings. You're only allowed to collect 1 of these for the entire game. On them, they're going to have a number of victory points that these are also worth, and you're allowed to collect these on your turn if you are able to meet the requirements of the card. In this case, I have to have 9 power, which I actually give back up to the game in order to collect this particular card. Also, each player is going to come to the game with a number of cards in front of them. One of these cards is called your calling, and this is kept secret for the entire game. This is something that you are trying to do by the end of the game. This one here says, if I have corrupted the most of the investigators by the end of the game, I'm going to gain 4 victory points, and these have all different variety of different goals that you're trying to meet.
Yeah, all of these cards are going to be things you're trying to collect to score as many points along with those soul tokens by the end of the game. The game is actually going to end when any one of these locations has 2 of its pools, and those pools are the resolve, the souls, or the power tokens, emptied. Once that happens, it's going to trigger the end of the game. Now, you're asking yourself, how do you play the game? So that's what we're going to talk about right now. Everyone at the table is going to have a hand of 7 cards. Everyone has the same 7 cards, except they're noted on the back and in the top corner with different icons so you know who owns that card.
When you look at these cards, each one of them is considered one of your followers. And each of them is going to have a number 1 through 7 in the upper left-hand corner, but they're also going to have a number of different icons. These icons can be separated or they can be grouped together, meaning that if you're able to take this action, you take one of them, or if they're grouped together in some cases, you get to take multiple different icon actions on them. These things allow you to do things like collect power, collect souls, be able to collect more resolve cards into your deck, and so forth.
And at the beginning of the game, like I said, you're going to have all 7 cards in your hand. After subsequent rounds, you're going to have 3 less in your hand at any given time. But the game begins simultaneously. Everyone is going to take their hand and start to assign their followers to the 3 different locations. Now, there is some timing involved here because ties are going to be broken with some respect to when you've played your cards. But everyone is going to be playing cards to these 3 locations. Once everyone has played a card to all 3 of those locations, you're going to look to the first location and resolve from left to right.
Once each of the players has one of their cards in each of the 3 different columns, you're going to start going from left to right by flipping that entire stack in the exact same order that was placed in that particular way. And you're going to order them according to the number that they are. This is important because sometimes when you tie, if you've placed first, you get to be before the other players. In this case, no one tied. We have a 5, a 3, and a 7. And once again, as we already said, you can tell which card you played by the icon that's in the upper left along with the number. And you're going to order these from the lowest value all the way to the highest value. This is important because it's going to be a direct reflection of that investigator card. We'll get to that in just a moment. Then you're going to take those actions starting from the lowest number to the highest number.
Right, and the actions are going to be right there down the side of the card like Jeremy already mentioned. In this case, we've got the 3 who's going to either take 2 soul tokens or use this other action. This other action allows them to take 2 horror cards from the board and place them in 2 different of their opponent's hands. This is going to negatively affect their resolve deck so that they're in a better position. But you're basically going to be going through this from lowest to highest, like Jeremy said, and you're going to be picking one of the tabs along the side of the card to enact. Most of these are going to deplete these different things, either increasing your resolve deck with new cards, acquiring some soul tokens, or acquiring some power to use in future turns.
And remember, the order of taking these place during that round is extremely important because there may be times when there's not enough tokens to take, and the players that play the lower numbers are going to be able to do that before the higher numbers in there. Also remember, there is another icon on here, and this is the corrupt icon. It's the only time in the game, and it's only on a 1 or a 2 that you're allowed to actively try to corrupt the investigator that is in that particular location. Couple things you need to know when you want to attempt to do that. Number 1, each of these investigators has a number in the lower right-hand corner. It is a number split by a slash. The first number is the number of cards you're allowed to draw from your resolve deck. And as we said at the very beginning, you're going to start with a pretty poor resolve deck. 4 of them that are horrors that have no value, and then 1 determined card that has a value of 2. The second number is the threshold that you have to meet. In this case, I have to draw 4 cards and hopefully hit 5 resolve. All of your resolve is by the icons of the Cthulhu that you see in here. They're either a value of 0, they're a value of 1, or they're a value of 2. And as you start to build that deck through the course of the game, you have better chances in order to meet that threshold. You can also spend power in order to try to boost that ability. Any of the power that you have in front of you that you've collected, you're allowed to give back either 1 or 2 per card flip in order to try to enhance that card. But that card is only going to be enhanced if it has an icon on it. So say you spend 2 of your power, but you flip a horror, it's still worth 0. But if you flip a determine that has 2 icons on it and you spend 2 power, that's 2 plus your 2 power. So there's some chances by stacking your deck appropriately that you're able to meet those.
And this is how the resolve deck is going to work in a number of different instances. We'll get to a tie in a second, but it works very similarly. So you're going to move location by location. In the second location, we have cards and we've got a tie here. So we've got 2 5s. I played first. So when you're resolving a tie, you're going to, again, look to your resolve deck to see who either gets to enact the power of their card or who doesn't. So in this case, I have a 5, I played first, so Jeremy's going to have to bet his power first. We're each going to flip 1 resolve card along with the power that we bet and see who wins. So when we flip that and resolve it, whoever wins gets to take the action of their card. Whoever loses gets a consolation of taking the card that was flipped by their opponent, because obviously it was a better card. And anyway, you're going to move through these 3 locations and resolve them in that fashion all the way to the 3rd location. After that's done, it's time for the investigator to attack. When this happens, you're going to look up here in this corner of the board and look for the icon. There's 3 different possible investigator icons. This one matches up with the book, so we know that the investigator at location 1 is going to attack. This is when that other icon on that investigator card comes into play.
Yes, you're going to look at the icon here, and again, this isn't finished iconography for the game, but what this is saying is the card that is highest up on the stack is the one that you're going to be attacked. There's 3 different values here. It's the highest card, it is the lowest card, which is either the 1 or the 7 or some combination, or all the cards in the middle, meaning that if this had a middle icon, the number 5 would be attacked. So you can see in a 6-player game, the middle clump of people are the people that are going to be attacked. What it's asking you to do here is to flip a card and try to meet a very specific value as well. If you don't meet that value, you have to get rid of whatever it's attacking you with, in this case, 2 power.
Yeah, each of the investigators are going to be targeting a very specific type of resource that you have, be it resolve cards or power or souls. If you flip a card, you're able to reduce the amount of things that they steal from you. Now, on the flip side, whatever they do get to steal, whether it's from the highest, the lowest, or everyone in the middle, all of those resources are going to go underneath or on their card. Because if you're able to corrupt an investigator, like we earlier described, you're going to take that investigator card and all of the resources that they have.
Now remember, you're also trying to do other things besides get the resources from the cards and fight the investigators. At any time on your turn, you're able to meet any of the requirements for the altars. You can collect that altar, giving you victory points. If you meet any of the blessings down here, all you have to have is the requirement, and you get to collect that. All the cards that you use that turn, meaning the 3 cards that you had splayed out of those 3 columns, are going to go to the discard pile. This is why timing and using the right card at the right time is so important. As these piles start to deplete, you start to realize that some of the cards you have left over in your hand are completely useless in very specific columns. So there's this dichotomy of trying to do the right thing at the right time, but also avoid the attacks of the investigators.
Not to mention the fact that everyone else around the table is trying to do the same thing, so you're going to try to get into everyone's head and figure out what they're going to do. For example, in the first round or 2, no one may be playing a 1 or a 2 because they want to hold on to their card that allows them to corrupt an investigator till later. Or they might, because they think that you might not be doing that. So there's a lot of head games involved in this as well. The points are all over the place. You can get the soul tokens, you can get all the cards we've talked about. Some of those do come, however, with some penalties. If you claim an altar, you're not only losing all of that power, but you have to take one of the characters out of your deck and assign it to that altar so that you don't have that character for the rest of the game, which makes it kind of a big risk. You're getting maybe 7 points or something like that, but you're reducing your hand for the rest of the game.
And remember, the game will end once any 2 piles are depleted in any one of these columns. You're going to add up your victory points from all those different things, 5 different ways to score, and whoever has the most points is going to be the winner. So guys, that is Rise of the Elder Gods. It's from Inside Up Games. A 2 to 6 player game takes 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah,
a very fast playing
play.
game. If you have any questions, make them in the comments below. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and we will catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.